The world froze on July 22, 2025, when the news hit. Ozzy Osbourne, the untamed soul who gave heavy metal its heartbeat, was gone at 76. His death didn't just mark the end of a rock legend, it closed a chapter on a life that roared with chaos, passion, and redemption. But what lingers isn't just his music or his wildman persona. In his final moments, Ozzy shared words that cut sharper than any riff he ever belted out. A confession of regrets, a plea for forgiveness, and a call for peace that could rewrite how we see his turbulent journey. What secrets did he unveil as he faced the end? And how do they echo through the highs and lows of his life? Let's dive into the raw, unfiltered story of a man who lived on the edge, loved fiercely, and left a legacy that's as real as it gets. Imagine Birmingham, England in the 1950s, a city scarred by war, its streets gritty and gray. John Michael Osbourne, the kid who'd become Ozzy, was born here on December 3, 1948, the fourth of 6 siblings in a working-class family scraping by. His father, Jack, ground out night shifts as a toolmaker, while his mother, Lillian, clocked long hours in a factory. Home wasn't a refuge. It was a pressure cooker of arguments and cold silences. Ozzy later said he felt unloved, a wound that never fully healed. School was no escape either. Bullied relentlessly and sexually abused by older boys at 11, he buried the trauma, letting it simmer beneath his defiance. Dyslexia and undiagnosed ADHD made learning feel like wading through mud, and by 15, he'd had enough. He ditched school for odd jobs, plumber's apprentice, slaughterhouse worker, car horn tuner, but none stuck. Then he stumbled into petty crime, botching burglaries like stealing baby clothes in the dark, leaving thumbprints because his gloves were too big. A 6-week jail stint followed when his dad refused to pay the fine, a low point that left him humiliated. Music, though, was his lifeline. Hooked by the Beatles' She Loves You, he scraped together pennies to borrow guitars, jamming in Birmingham's backrooms, chasing a dream that seemed out of reach in a city drowning in hardship. But something was stirring, a spark that would ignite the world. By 1968, Birmingham's music scene pulsed with raw energy, and Ozzy found his crew. He answered a flyer for a singer, linking up with guitarist Tony Iommi, bassist Geezer Butler, and drummer Bill Ward in a band called Polka Tulk Blues, soon renamed Earth. They were just local guys, hammering out bluesy riffs in dive bars. But their sound darkened, inspired by a Boris Karloff horror film called Black Sabbath. They adopted the name, and in 1970, their debut album Black Sabbath dropped like a thunderclap. Its eerie, sludgy riffs and occult-tinged lyrics stood out against the flower power anthems of the time. Their follow-up, Paranoid, released later that year, was a juggernaut, with tracks like Iron Man, War Pigs, and Paranoid screaming rebellion against war, greed, and conformity. Ozzy's voice, raw, haunting, unpolished, became the soul of heavy metal. Black Sabbath wasn't just a band. They were a revolution, selling millions and packing venues from London to Los Angeles. But behind the stage lights, Ozzy was falling apart. Alcohol and drugs, cocaine, LSD, anything he could get, gripped him. He'd miss rehearsals, show up wasted, or skip gigs entirely. By 1979, his bandmates were done. Iommi, Butler, and Ward fired him, a betrayal that sent him into a tailspin. He holed up in a hotel, drowning in booze and self-pity. Yet even at his lowest, someone saw a flicker of potential worth saving. That someone was Sharon Arden, daughter of Black Sabbath's manager, Don Arden. She saw past the mess Ozzy had become and bet on his talent. Taking over as his manager, she pushed him to go solo, pulling him from the brink. In 1980, Blizzard of Oz hit like a lightning bolt, introducing Crazy Train, a song that still rips through rock playlists today. With guitarist Randy Rhoads, a virtuoso who matched Ozzy's intensity, the album blended metal's edge with melodic hooks, hitting quadruple platinum. Diary of a Madman, 1981, climbed to number 16 on the charts, proving Ozzy wasn't a one-hit wonder. But his wild side didn't vanish. In 1981, at a tense meeting with CBS Records, he planned to release Doves as a peace gesture, but, in a drunken impulse, bit the heads off 2 of them. The stunt shocked execs and made headlines. A year later, in Des Moines, Iowa, he bit the head off a dead bat thrown on stage, mistaking it for a rubber prop. He needed rabies shots, and the story became legend, cementing his Prince of Darkness persona. Critics branded him a Satanist. Parents groups picketed his shows, and a 1986 lawsuit claimed his song Suicide Solution drove a teen to take his own life. The case was dismissed. Ozzy said the song was about alcoholism, not ending it all, but the label stuck. He insisted it was all theatrics, not his true self. Yet tragedy struck in 1982 when Rhodes died in a plane crash, a loss that gutted Ozzy. He soldiered on, releasing albums like Bark at the Moon, 1983, and The Ultimate Sin, 1986. But the chaos wasn't just on stage. His personal life was a storm, and one woman held it together. Sharon wasn't just his manager, she became his rock. They married in 1982 after Ozzy's first marriage to Thelma Riley crumbled under his addiction and infidelity. With Sharon, he raised 3 kids, Amy, Kelly, and Jack, while staying close to his 3 children from Thelma, Jessica, Lewis, and Elliot. Their marriage was a battlefield at times. In 1989, in a drug-fueled blackout, Ozzy was arrested for trying to strangle Sharon at their home. He woke up in jail, horrified with no memory of the act. Sharon dropped the charges, saying she couldn't let their kids lose their dad. Her strength pulled him through multiple rehab stints, relapses, and public scandals. By the 1990s, she transformed his career with Ozzfest, a traveling metal festival launched in 1996 that became a launchpad for bands like Slipknot, System of a Down, and Disturbed. It wasn't just a concert series. It was a cultural force, cementing Ozzy's role as a metal godfather. Then came The Osbournes in 2002, an MTV reality show that peeled back the curtain on their chaotic but loving family life. Viewers saw Ozzy not as a devil-worshipping madman, but as a mumbling, dog-obsessed dad, swearing at malfunctioning remotes and fussing over his kids. The show won an Emmy, ran for 4 seasons, and showed a side of Ozzy the world hadn't seen, a man who, beneath the madness, craved connection. But as his fame soared, his body began to fail, setting the stage for his final chapter. In 2003, Ozzy's health took a brutal hit. An ATV accident on his English estate crushed his collarbone, broke ribs, and damaged his spine, nearly killing him. He spent weeks in a coma, and recovery was grueling. In 2019, a fall at his Los Angeles home worsened the damage, requiring spinal surgeries that left him in constant pain. Then came the diagnosis he'd kept secret since 2003, Parkinson's disease, revealed publicly in 2020. Sharon described his voice as untouched, but his body betrayed him daily. In a May 2025 interview, Ozzy called his condition Doomtown, a relentless cycle of new pains. Yet he refused to bow out. In 2022, he stunned fans by closing the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham with Tony Iommi, his voice cutting through despite his frailty. His final albums, Ordinary Man, 2020, and Patient Number 9, 2022, featured collabs with Post Malone, Jeff Beck, and Eric Clapton, earning a Grammy for Best Metal Performance. But the pinnacle came on July 5, 2025, with Back to the Beginning, a farewell concert at Villa Park, Birmingham. Joined by Black Sabbath's original lineup and guests like Metallica and Guns N' Roses, Ozzy performed from a black throne, belting out Paranoid, Crazy Train, and War Pigs to 42,000 fans and 5.8 million online viewers. The show raised $190 million for children's charities, a testament to his heart. "You're my life," he told the crowd, voice breaking. "Thank you from my soul." But what did he say when the curtain fell for good? In his final hours, surrounded by Sharon, Jack, Kelly, Amy, and his other children at his Los Angeles home, Ozzy spoke words that hit harder than any stage stunt. "Let me go in peace," he whispered. "Don't be sad. It's time for me to rest." He forgave those who'd wronged him, former bandmates, tabloid critics, even the shadows of his past. More powerfully, he owned his mistakes, the pain his addiction inflicted on his family, the reckless acts that hurt those closest to him. "Forgive yourself and others," he said. "Don't let hatred eat you alive." These weren't just farewells. They were a reckoning, a plea to release the weight of grudges. Some posts on X have stirred speculation, unverified, that Ozzy chose euthanasia, framing his farewell concert as a planned goodbye, a symbolic funeral. Others whisper he held on, just long enough to give fans that final show. While these rumors lack proof, they reflect the awe at his determination to go out on his terms. His upcoming memoir, Last Rites, set for release in October 2025, reportedly dives deeper into his health struggles, his regrets, and his search for peace. Ozzy's words weren't just for his family. They were a beacon for anyone carrying resentment, urging us to let go to find calm. Ozzy's legacy stretches far beyond the chords of Iron Man or the frenzy of Crazy Train. He didn't just pioneer heavy metal with Black Sabbath, he shaped a genre that thrives today. Bands like Metallica, Slayer, and Megadeth credit him as a blueprint, while modern artists like Post Malone and Travis Scott tapped him for collabs, proving his reach across generations. Ozfest, his brainchild, wasn't just a festival. It was a launchpad that gave bands like Korn and Lamb of God their start, fostering a community of rebellion and creativity. The Osbournes reshaped pop culture, showing a rock star as a flawed, funny family man, paving the way for reality TV's boom. His life was a testament to survival, clawing back from addiction, betrayal, and a body that failed him. His marriage to Sharon, tested by violence, infidelity, and illness, proved love could endure the darkest storms. In his later years, he became an advocate for mental health, speaking openly about his battles with depression and addiction, urging others to seek help. His final concert was a masterclass in defiance, a frail man pouring his soul into one last performance. Ozzy wasn't flawless. He owned his failures, from biting bats to breaking trust, but he found redemption in music, family, and forgiveness. Let's go deeper into those early years because they shaped the man Ozzy became. Growing up in Aston, Birmingham wasn't just tough, it was soul-crushing. The Osbourne household was a revolving door of tension, with 6 kids packed into a cramped terrace house. Ozzy's parents worked opposite shifts, barely crossing paths, leaving him to navigate a world that felt cold and hostile. The abuse he suffered at 11 wasn't something he spoke about until much later, in his 2009 memoir, I Am Ozzy. It left scars that fueled his anger and insecurity, pushing him toward rebellion. School was a dead end. Teachers dismissed him as a troublemaker, and his dyslexia went undiagnosed, making him feel stupid. He found solace in music, sneaking into record shops to listen to Beatles singles he couldn't afford. His first instrument was a broomstick he'd pretend to play, dreaming of a stage far from Birmingham's gloom. When he finally got his hands on a microphone, it was through sheer hustle, borrowing gear, crashing local gigs, and begging for a chance. Those early days weren't glamorous. They were a fight for identity in a world that seemed to reject him at every turn. Black Sabbath's rise wasn't just a musical breakthrough, it was a cultural shift. In the late 1960s, rock was dominated by peace and love vibes, but Birmingham's industrial grit demanded something heavier. Tony Iommi's detuned guitar, a result of a factory accident that cost him 2 fingertips, gave their sound its menacing edge. Geezer Butler's lyrics, steeped in sci-fi and occult imagery, tapped into fears of war and societal decay. Ozzy's voice, unconventional, almost unhinged, brought it to life. Their 1970 debut was recorded in 2 days on a tiny budget, yet it hit number 8 in the UK and number 23 in the US. Paranoid went to number 1 in the UK and No. 12 in the US, selling over 4 million copies. Songs like War Pigs, originally called Walpurgis after a witch's Sabbath, critiqued Vietnam War-era politics, resonating with a generation tired of authority. But success came at a cost. Ozzy's drug use escalated, cocaine binges, LSD trips, and endless liquor. He'd black out during shows, once waking up in a field after a gig, unsure how he got there. His bandmates, while not saints, grew frustrated as his behavior tanked their reliability. The 1979 firing wasn't just professional, it felt personal, a rejection from the brothers he'd built a legacy with. But it lit a fire that would define his next chapter. The solo years were where Ozzy proved he was more than Black Sabbath's frontman. Sharon's belief in him was unshakable. She saw a star when others saw a burnout. Blizzard of Oz wasn't just a comeback, it was a reinvention. Randy Rhoads, a classically trained guitarist, brought a new dimension to Ozzy's sound, blending metal's aggression with intricate melodies. Crazy Train wasn't just a hit, it was a cultural touchstone. Its opening riff instantly recognizable. The album's success, peaking at No. 21 in the US and selling over 6 million copies worldwide, showed Ozzy could stand alone. But the controversies kept coming. The bat incident in 1982 wasn't planned. Ozzy thought it was a toy, and the crowd's roar egged him on. The backlash was swift. Bans from venues, protests by religious groups, and endless tabloid stories. The Dove incident, though less gruesome, was just as impulsive. A moment of drunken bravado that became a PR nightmare. Yet Ozzy leaned into the chaos, knowing it kept him in the spotlight. His 1986 album, The Ultimate Sin, and 1991's No More Tears kept him relevant, with hits like Shot in the Dark and Mama, I'm Coming Home, showing a softer, more introspective side. Through it all, Sharon steered the ship, negotiating deals and keeping his career alive even when he couldn't. Sharon's role can't be overstated. Beyond managing his career, she was his emotional anchor. Their 1982 marriage in Hawaii was a commitment born of love and chaos. Ozzy's first marriage to Thelma Riley from 1971 to 1982 produced 3 kids but buckled under his addiction and constant touring. With Sharon, he found a partner who could match his intensity. The 1989 incident was their darkest moment. Ozzy, high on drugs and vodka, attacked her in a rage. Sharon later said she saw his eyes go blank, like he wasn't there. Her decision to drop the charges wasn't weakness. It was a calculated choice to keep their family intact. She managed his rehab, stood by him through relapses, and even forgave his 2016 affair with a hairstylist, which led to a brief separation. Their bond was tested again by his health crises, from the 2003 ATV crash to the 2019 fall that left him bedridden for months. Sharon became his caregiver, helping him navigate Parkinson's symptoms that made walking or even standing a struggle. Her loyalty was evident in small moments, adjusting his wheelchair during shows, speaking for him when words failed. The Osbournes captured their dynamic: Ozzy's goofy affection, Sharon's sharp wit, and their kids' eye-rolling love. It humanized a man the world saw as a monster, showing a family that fought and laughed together. Ozzy's health battles were a slow, brutal grind. The 2003 ATV accident broke his neck vertebra, collarbone, and 8 ribs, requiring a steel rod in his spine. He was in a coma for 8 days, and doctors warned he might never perform again. Yet he returned, releasing Black Rain in 2007 and Scream in 2010. The 2019 fall was worse, dislodging the rod and requiring 6 surgeries over 5 years. Parkinson's, diagnosed in 2003 but kept private until 2020, added tremors, stiffness, and balance issues. By 2025, he described his body as falling apart, yet his spirit stayed fierce. His final albums showed he could still create. Patient Number 9 won a Grammy in 2023, with guest stars like Zakk Wylde and Tony Iommi. His 2022 Commonwealth Games performance was a middle finger to his limitations, a frail man commanding a stadium. The July 2025 farewell concert, Back to the Beginning, was his ultimate statement. Planned over 2 years, it reunited Black Sabbath's original lineup, with guest performances by Slash, Dave Grohl, and Billie Joe Armstrong. Ozzy, seated in his throne, sang with a fire that defied his body's collapse. The set list spanned his career: Children of the Grave, No More Tears, Fairies Wear Boots, each song a chapter of his life. Fans wept, knowing it was goodbye. The $190 million raised for charity was a nod to his quieter philanthropy, like supporting Birmingham Children's Hospital. Those final words in July 2025 weren't just a goodbye, they were a revelation. Ozzy's plea to go in peace was layered with meaning. He forgave old grudges: the Black Sabbath firing, the media's Satanist labels, the lawsuits that dogged him. He owned his wrongs: the pain he caused Sharon, the neglect his kids felt during his addicted years, the reckless stunts that hurt his legacy. Forgive yourself and others was a mantra born from a life of mistakes and redemption. The X posts speculating about euthanasia, some claiming the concert was his planned exit, add a layer of mystery, but there's no evidence to back them. What's clear is Ozzy's resolve to end on his terms, with a performance that said everything his body couldn't. Last Rites, his memoir set for October 2025, reportedly details his final years, from the agony of Parkinson's to his peace with his past. It's said to include letters to his kids, urging them to live without regret. His words resonate beyond his family, a call to anyone holding on to anger or guilt to let it go. Ozzy's legacy is etched in music and beyond. Black Sabbath's sound birthed a genre, influencing everyone from Iron Maiden to Nirvana. Ozfest, running from 1996 to 2018, wasn't just a festival. It was a proving ground for metal's future, giving bands like Marilyn Manson and Lamb of God their break. The Osbournes changed how we see celebrities, showing raw, unfiltered life that inspired shows like Keeping Up with the Kardashians. Ozzy's openness about addiction and mental health, sharing his bipolar diagnosis and rehab struggles, made him a reluctant advocate, encouraging fans to seek help. His marriage to Sharon, through its storms, showed love's endurance. His final concert was a love letter to fans, a frail man giving everything. He wasn't a saint. He admitted to cheating, to hurting those he loved, but he owned it, seeking forgiveness in the end. His story, from a Birmingham kid to a global icon, is about surviving darkness with grit and heart. Ozzy Osbourne lived louder than life, faced demons most would crumble under, and came out singing. His final plea for forgiveness and peace isn't just a goodbye, it's a challenge to us all. Let go of the past, love fiercely, and live without regret. If his journey moved you, hit that like button, share your thoughts on Ozzy's lessons below, and subscribe for more stories that hit as hard as a Sabbath riff. Thank you for joining this ride. See you in the next one.